Anyway, well, lo and behold, I see we have a piece up on our website. Sheila, talk about something that might be for the year 2022, the most overlooked, underreported story in Canada. And I speak of a Manitoba man who's now pleading guilty in a hit and run on COVID-19 protesters, aka freedom fighters. Here's the thing, folks, why I say overlooked, underrated. If that man was wearing a MAGA cap and this was, say, a Black Lives Matter demonstration, it's still probably on the front page today. Toxic masculinity, white supremacy, et cetera, et cetera. But because he's on Team Pfizer, I guess, and the freedom fighters are really fascist because, they fly that fascist symbol known as a maple leaf flag on a hockey stick. Yeah, well, we got to give this guy some slack. This is mind-numbing to me, Sheila, and I can't believe it's taken this long to get to where we are right now.
Yeah, this story is quite horrendous, and I think it's the hand of God that it wasn't far, far worse. He drove his, I think it was a crappy Jeep Patriot or something like that.
Yeah, not the real Jeep.
No. Wasn't, it wasn't great. I saw pictures of it after the fact, and I'm like, it looks like it's hit a few things in its day. But anyways, he drove his Jeep into a crowd of 100 people, and he was seen by witnesses who didn't know each other accelerating into the crowd. The crowd was a convoy demonstration. There he goes, no disregard. Like, look, oh my God, he just drove right over those people. Every time I see it, it makes me sick to watch because it could have been so much worse. He didn't even stop. He drove over people and then just drove away. This was an act of political terrorism. This guy's a far left-wing Antifa activist. I think he's got a history of doing creepy things with younger girls. He's a musician, as these weirdos tend to be. And so, anyways, some strange things in his history with the young women who would sort of gather around him in the course of his musical career. But anyways, his music lyrics revolve around anarchy. He's an anti-racism activist, again, as these people tend to be. And he drove right into the crowd. He... Like, look at this. This guy could have been shoved under the wheels of the other vehicle there. Like, that's terrible.
Horrible.
He could have had his head run over. So anyways, this is an act of political terrorism. It was probably the most violent thing that ever came out of the convoy demonstrations. That's for sure. I believe his bank account was not frozen, and I think he was out on bail almost immediately. And he has now, I guess, pled guilty to hit and run on COVID-19 protesters. I don't know what his sentence will be, but I'm sure it will be almost nothing.
And that is the question I had for you, Sheila Gunn Reid. Now that he's pled guilty, what will the sentence be? Will he even see, I'm not kidding you, a day behind bars? I think it's going to be some bullshit community service, him uttering a mea culpa, which he doesn't mean. And by the way, with him being such an outrageous leftist, shouldn't he be riding a bicycle or at least a plug-in hybrid Toyota Prius, you would think? That's a pretty heavy fossil fuel burning vehicle, but I guess that's what you want when you're trying to carry out injuries and death to those who you disagree with. And I would suggest, Sheila, based on that evidence, to me, the charge should be attempted murder. That was a deliberate act. He wasn't, thrown off the road. He wasn't inebriated. You can't play that card. That was attempted murder. What else do you expect when you take a Jeep and drive it into a crowd of people? He better do some hard time, because if he doesn't, that will just embolden those of that ideology, the Antifa type, the radical transgenders who often self-identify as violent thugs and the cops do nothing. That will just further embolden them that, hey, even if I get caught and charged, I'm not doing any prison time, suckers.
Yeah, like the details of this are pretty, they're pretty on the nose, actually. So let's look at what became of the people he ran over. Zegarac, proceeded to ram into 4 people, with all of them sustaining injuries. One man was sent to the hospital with head and arm injuries, while another suffered a bruised jaw and chipped teeth from the encounter. So a head injury could have been much worse. This is just chef's kiss, top tier leftism.
Yep.
After authorities pulled Zegarac over, he allegedly became combative and accused the officers of being racist. Police were, this is the part that brings me a little joy, knowing that he got tasered. Police were forced to use an electric shock device a number of times in order to get him out of the vehicle.
Wow.
This guy felt that he was justified in running over people, and then he thought that if he screamed loudly enough at the police that they were racist, that they would let him go.
And he plays the race card, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he might be Indigenous or part Indigenous. Anyways, so he probably ran over. I mean, it's Winnipeg. He probably ran over people of Indigenous descent, by the way. It's Winnipeg.
Yeah. I don't care if he's part Martian, Sheila. The law is the law, and it should be colorblind.
You don't get to run over people.
Exactly.
I don't care what your ancestry is. You just don't get to run over people. But it's a bit much for someone who drove into a crowd of protesters in Winnipeg to claim that the police are being racist because they arrested him when you probably ran over somebody of Indigenous descent. But anyways, according to the Winnipeg Free Press, the Crown prosecutor is seeking an 18-month jail term, while his defense attorney is recommending he be allowed to serve a conditional sentence in the community.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.